Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, lights shining down, and you begin by asking them a simple question. How many of you believe that ideas are enough to change your business? Almost every hand in the room goes up. Then you pause, smile, and drop the line that catches them off guard. If ideas were enough, we'd all be millionaires by now. And in that one moment, you've hooked them. Because the truth is, no matter how groundbreaking or revolutionary a strategy looks on paper, it will never move the needle without one critical ingredient: execution. The business world is overflowing with ideas. Every coffee shop conversation, every late night brainstorming session, every motivational seminar leaves people buzzing with new strategies and fresh approaches. Entrepreneurs are obsessed with strategy documents, vision boards, and 5-year plans. But here's the raw reality. Most of those plans never make it off the page. They gather dust in binders or live as bullet points in forgotten slide decks. Why? Because execution, the unglamorous, daily, disciplined work of putting one foot in front of the other, is missing. Strategy tells you what to do, but execution decides if it will ever happen. Take a look at some of the greatest companies of our time. None of them scaled because they had the most brilliant strategy in the beginning. Amazon didn't conquer the world by simply writing down, "Be the everything store." That was a strategy. What made it real was Jeff Bezos's relentless execution, the obsession with customer experience, the systems built to deliver faster, cheaper, better. Tesla didn't become a household name because Elon Musk had the idea of electric cars. Others had that strategy decades earlier. What set Tesla apart was their ability to execute, from building factories at breakneck speed to solving supply chain problems, to actually getting cars into the hands of customers. Strategy might open the door, but execution is the act of walking through it. Think of it like this: strategy is the map, but execution is the journey. You can have the most detailed map in the world, with every road marked and every shortcut highlighted, but if you never start walking, or if you stumble and give up halfway, the map is meaningless. In business, the same principle applies. Execution is about consistency, systems, and discipline. It's not about the excitement of planning. It's about the grind of doing. And that grind, when repeated, creates momentum. But why do so many entrepreneurs and leaders get stuck in strategy mode? Because it feels safe. Strategy is exciting, it's intellectual, and it doesn't involve failure. At least not immediately. You can brainstorm, plan, and polish ideas endlessly without ever facing the messy reality of implementation. Execution, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It forces you to deal with imperfect results, to adjust in real time, to confront challenges and setbacks. Execution exposes whether your idea can stand in the real world. That's why most businesses plateau. Not because the strategy was wrong, but because the execution never matched the vision. Let's put this in perspective. Imagine two companies. Company A has an incredible strategy, a bold vision, and a team that spends months refining it. But when it comes time to act, they move slowly, they debate endlessly, and they let perfectionism delay their progress. Company B, on the other hand, has a decent but not world-changing strategy. Yet they execute with speed, testing, learning, adapting every single week. Which company do you think scales faster? History tells us it's Company B every time. Because in business, speed of execution beats the brilliance of strategy. Execution creates feedback loops, and feedback loops create innovation. Here's the irony: execution is often seen as basic, but it's actually the most advanced skill of scaling. Execution requires clarity, alignment, accountability, and systems. It requires leaders who not only talk about vision, but also roll up their sleeves to build processes and enforce standards. It's not glamorous to track metrics daily, to hold people accountable weekly, to refine systems monthly. But that's the backbone of growth. Strategy might attract investors or inspire your team in the beginning, but execution is what retains them, motivates them, and proves your business can scale. Now, think about your own business for a moment. What ideas have you been sitting on that haven't been executed? What brilliant strategies are stuck in your notebook because you're waiting for the perfect moment to launch? The truth is, execution doesn't wait for perfection. It thrives in iteration. Every step you take, even if imperfect, teaches you something strategy alone cannot. The first version of your product might fail, but the lessons from execution make the second version stronger. The market never rewards the idea. It rewards the action. Let me share something powerful. There's no such thing as a $1 million idea. There are only $1 million executions. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. Facebook wasn't the first social network. Netflix wasn't the first company to mail DVDs. The difference? They executed better than anyone else. They built the systems, the cultures, the habits, and the relentless drive to keep going when others stopped at the strategy stage. So what does this mean for you as a leader? It means you must shift your obsession from strategy to execution. Strategy should take 20% of your energy, and execution should take 80%. That's how you build scale. Spend less time polishing the perfect plan and more time ensuring your team knows how to deliver on the imperfect one. Hold them accountable, create clear processes, and measure results relentlessly, and adjust quickly when things don't work. Because in scaling, done is always better than perfect. And here's the closing thought. Strategy gets you applause, but execution gets you results. You can stand on stage, wow people with a brilliant vision, and feel like you've already won, but the marketplace doesn't reward applause. It rewards impact. And impact only comes from doing the work day in and day out. If you want to scale your business, stop worshiping strategy as if it's the destination. It's just the starting line. What matters is how far, how fast, and how consistently you can execute. That's where businesses grow. That's where leaders are made. And that's where your company will truly scale. Not in the brilliance of your ideas, but in the relentless execution that brings them to life. Imagine this: you walk into a company with an incredible strategy written on glossy slides. The vision is bold, the roadmap is clear, and the plan feels airtight. But as you look around, you notice something. The team isn't aligned, people don't believe in the mission, and there's no energy in the room. That company, no matter how brilliant its strategy, is already doomed. Because businesses don't scale through strategy documents. They scale through people. And that's the second reason why strategy alone will never grow your business to the next level. It's tempting to believe that a great idea is enough. But behind every business that has scaled to incredible heights, there are teams of people, leaders, managers, employees, partners, who carried the vision forward with grit, belief, and relentless effort. People are not just part of the equation, they are the equation. Strategy tells you what direction to go, but people decide how fast you'll get there and whether you'll survive the obstacles along the way. Think about Google in its early days. Their strategy wasn't unique. Search engines existed before Google, but what made Google different was the culture they built. A team obsessed with innovation, creativity, and solving problems others ignored. The execution wasn't fueled by a single strategy. It was driven by people who believed in the mission to organize the world's information. Or take Apple. Steve Jobs was undoubtedly a visionary, but without the engineers, designers, and employees who brought his vision to life, his strategy would have been nothing more than a speech. It wasn't the brilliance of his strategy that scaled Apple into a $1 trillion company. It was the people who believed enough to make the impossible happen. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Too many leaders treat people as secondary to strategy. They invest weeks in building elaborate plans, but fail to invest the same energy into building the right team, nurturing culture, or empowering their people. And then they wonder why execution fails. A company with a great strategy and a weak team will collapse faster than a company with a modest strategy and a powerful, committed team. Because when challenges hit, and they always do, it's not the strategy on the whiteboard that keeps the company alive. It's the people who adapt, who fight, and who innovate under pressure. People scale businesses in two critical ways, through alignment and through culture. Alignment means every person in the organization knows the vision, understands their role, and takes ownership of the mission. Without alignment, strategy gets lost in translation. Imagine rowing a boat with 10 people, but half are rowing left, half are rowing right, and a few aren't rowing at all. The strategy says, row north, but you'll end up stuck in circles. Now imagine the same boat where everyone is rowing in unison, every stroke aligned with the vision. That's when you scale fast. Alignment is not a one-time announcement. It's a daily practice of communication, reinforcement, and clarity. Then there's culture. Culture is the invisible force that scales a company faster than any plan. It determines how people act when no one is watching. It shapes how teams handle setbacks, how they treat customers, and how they support one another. A toxic culture will sabotage the best strategy. A healthy, empowering culture will carry even an average strategy to extraordinary heights. And Netflix famously said their success was less about their business model and more about their culture of freedom and responsibility. That culture gave people the ownership and autonomy to innovate, which allowed Netflix to pivot from DVD rentals to streaming to original content. Moves that strategy alone could never guarantee. Scaling is not about getting more customers or bigger revenues. It's about multiplying impact. And impact is a people game. Leaders who forget this often burn out or plateau because they're trying to do everything themselves, relying on strategy instead of building a team that can own the mission. The most scalable leaders are not the ones with the best ideas, but the ones who create more leaders around them. They invest in hiring, training, mentoring, and empowering. They understand that strategy on paper doesn't deliver results. People do. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you, as a leader, sat down with your team not to talk about strategy, but to talk about their growth, their challenges, their ideas? When was the last time you measured culture as seriously as you measured revenue? Because the companies that scale don't just obsess over financial performance. They obsess over people performance. They know that happy, aligned, and motivated teams deliver the execution that strategies alone cannot. Here's a simple truth you can't ignore. The wrong people in the right strategy will fail. The right people in the wrong strategy will adjust and win. Why? Because people create adaptability. They bring creativity, problem solving, and resilience to the table. Strategy is static, people are dynamic. And when markets change, technologies evolve, or crises hit, it's the people who pivot, not the strategy. Look at startups. Most of them begin with a strategy that shifts within the first year. What determines survival isn't whether the original plan was perfect, but whether the team was strong enough to adapt, pivot, and reinvent. Airbnb's original strategy wasn't about scaling a global empire. It was about renting air mattresses on floors. But the people behind it believed in solving a deeper problem, creating belonging anywhere. Their passion and commitment to execution turned a small, scrappy idea into a global platform. If you want to scale your business, you need to ask yourself, are you building a strategy-centric organization or a people-centric organization? Strategy-centric companies tend to crumble because they rely on control and plans. People-centric companies thrive because they rely on empowerment and trust. Scaling isn't about multiplying plans. It's about multiplying capacity. And capacity comes from people who are aligned, motivated, and empowered to act. So how do you make this real in your business? Start by shifting your focus. Don't just obsess over the strategy meeting, obsess over the hiring process. Don't just polish the slide deck, polish the culture. Spend as much time building your people as you do building your plan. Make alignment a non-negotiable, and make culture a strategic priority. Because when people believe, when they're aligned, and when they're given the tools to succeed, they'll make any strategy work. Even the imperfect ones. At the end of the day, scaling is a human game. It's not the brilliance of your strategy that customers feel. It's the passion of your people. It's not the perfection of your plan that investors notice, it's the energy of your team. And it's not the roadmap that creates impact. It's the humans who walk it every day. You want to scale your business. Then stop thinking strategy is your magic bullet. It's not. Your people are. They are the ones rowing the boat, fighting through the storms, and carrying your vision into reality. Strategy may give them the compass, but people are the wind in your sails. And without them, your business will never truly scale. Picture this: a business leader stands proudly on stage, unveiling a polished strategy to thunderous applause. The plan is airtight, the projections are dazzling, and the roadmap feels like a masterpiece. But 6 months later, reality has shifted. A competitor has launched a disruptive product, customer behavior has changed, and global events have rattled the market. Suddenly, that polished strategy looks outdated, irrelevant, and powerless. This is why adaptability, not perfection, determines whether a business truly scales. Strategy alone will never get you there, because the marketplace doesn't reward those who cling to the perfect plan. It rewards those who can bend, pivot, and evolve without breaking. We live in an era of constant change. Technology disrupts industries overnight, customer expectations evolve in real time, and unforeseen crises appear with little warning. Think back to the pandemic. Thousands of businesses had meticulously crafted strategies heading into 2020. Expansion plans, revenue targets, growth models. Within weeks, those strategies were useless. The companies that survived and even thrived weren't the ones with the perfect strategy written months earlier. They were the ones that adapted. Restaurants that shifted to delivery, gyms that went digital, retailers that leaned into e-commerce, all proved that adaptability beats perfection every time. Why is adaptability more powerful than strategy? Because strategy is fixed, while reality is fluid. Perfection in business is an illusion. No plan survives unchanged once it collides with the real world. Perfection tempts leaders into paralysis. They spend months or even years refining ideas, tweaking models, and waiting for the ideal conditions. Adaptability, on the other hand, is about action. It's about moving forward, learning fast, and changing course when the terrain demands it. The businesses that scale are not those with the best strategy written in advance, but those with the best ability to evolve on the fly. Consider Netflix. Their original strategy was mailing DVDs. By traditional standards, they could have perfected that model, doubling down on logistics, warehouses, and customer service. But they saw the world shifting towards streaming. They adapted, and in doing so, redefined entertainment. Later, they adapted again by moving into original content when they realized licensing wouldn't sustain growth. Had they clung to their initial, perfect strategy, they would have been swallowed by change. Instead, adaptability allowed them to lead it. The same lesson appears in the story of Nokia. Once the leader in mobile phones, they had the resources, the market share, and a strategy that had worked for years. But when the smartphone revolution came, they failed to adapt quickly enough. Their existing strategy had made them comfortable, even complacent. They believed perfection and execution of their old model would be enough. Meanwhile, Apple adapted to shifting consumer desires for touchscreens, apps, and sleek design. The result: Nokia collapsed while Apple scaled into one of the most valuable companies in history. The difference wasn't strategy. It was adaptability. Adaptability requires humility. Leaders must accept that they don't have all the answers, that no strategy is flawless, and that change is inevitable. Many businesses fail because their leaders become emotionally attached to the plan. They equate changing direction with failure, so they stubbornly push forward with an outdated approach. But scaling is not about loyalty to the plan. It's about loyalty to the mission. If the plan no longer serves the mission, you must adapt. Think of strategy as a compass, not a GPS. It points you in the right direction, but adaptability allows you to navigate around the roadblocks and detours you'll inevitably face. Adaptability also requires speed. In today's markets, slow adapters die. Amazon thrives not because they always get it right the first time, but because they experiment constantly, pivot quickly, and learn faster than competitors. Jeff Bezos once said, "Our success is a function of how many experiments we do per year, per month, per week, per day." That's adaptability in action, an organization wired not for perfection, but for evolution. The companies that scale embed this mindset into their culture. They create systems that encourage testing, iteration, and innovation. They don't punish failure, they punish inaction. There's also a deep psychological element to adaptability. Perfection feels safe. It gives leaders a sense of control, as if they can predict the future by planning carefully enough. Adaptability feels risky because it demands letting go of certainty and embracing the unknown. But safety is an illusion. The riskiest thing you can do in business is to cling to yesterday's playbook while the world moves on without you. Adaptability, though uncomfortable, is the only real path to survival and growth. Let's ground this in something practical. Imagine two businesses launching new products. Company A spends 2 years perfecting its strategy, fine-tuning every feature, and polishing every detail before launch. Company B launches quickly with a minimum viable product, listens to customer feedback, and adapts the product every few weeks. Within a year, Company B has iterated its way into a product customers love. Company A finally launches, but by then, the market has moved on, and they're too late. This is the difference between perfection and adaptability. Perfection is slow, rigid, and fragile. Adaptability is fast, flexible, and resilient. Scaling requires resilience because scaling is messy. It's not a straight line of growth. It's a roller coaster of setbacks, surprises, and breakthroughs. The leaders who scale are those who remain calm in the chaos, not because they cling to the plan, but because they're confident in their ability to adapt no matter what comes. They know the goal isn't to predict the future perfectly, but to respond to it masterfully. So, how do you build adaptability into your business? It starts with mindset. You must teach your team that change is not a threat, it's an opportunity. You must create a culture where experimentation is encouraged and learning is celebrated, even when it comes from failure. You must shorten feedback loops so information from customers, employees, and markets flows quickly into decision-making. And most importantly, you must lead by example. When leaders model adaptability, when they admit mistakes, change course publicly, and make bold pivots, it gives permission for the entire organization to do the same. Adaptability is also about trust. To adapt quickly, you must empower people at all levels to make decisions without waiting for endless approvals. Centralized, rigid organizations cannot adapt because they choke on bureaucracy. Decentralized, empowered teams adapt because they can act on insights in real time. Trusting your people to adapt on the ground is how you scale speed. And speed is everything when the world is changing by the week. Here's the truth every leader must face. The world doesn't care about your perfect strategy. The world cares about how well you serve it today, how quickly you adjust tomorrow, and how resilient you remain when everything changes again. Scaling is not about executing a flawless plan. It's about building an organization that can thrive in constant motion. So the next time you find yourself obsessing over the perfect strategy, pause. Ask yourself, what if the market changes tomorrow? What if our customers demand something new next month? What if a crisis hits next year? Is my team ready to adapt, or are we trapped in perfection? Because when the future comes, and it always does, it won't be your strategy that saves you. It will be your adaptability. And that, more than perfection, is what will determine whether your business merely survives or truly scales. Imagine for a moment that you have the most brilliant strategy in the world. You've done the research, you've spotted the opportunities, you've built the roadmap. But now comes the real test. Can your business handle it? Can your systems, your technology, your finances, and your infrastructure actually support the weight of your ambition? Because here's the truth. Without the right resources and infrastructure, even the best strategy collapses under its own weight. Strategy alone does not scale a business. Execution capacity does. And execution capacity is built on tools, systems, people, and resources that can carry the load. Think of a skyscraper. You can design the most breathtaking blueprint, a masterpiece of modern architecture. But if the foundation is weak, if the materials are cheap, if the builders cut corners, the building will not stand. It's the same with business. Your strategy is the blueprint, but your infrastructure is the foundation. Without strong financial systems, reliable technology, and scalable operations, your strategy is just a beautiful drawing on paper. Let's take an example. Imagine an online store that suddenly goes viral. Their strategy worked, they attracted attention, built demand, and customers are flooding in. But their website crashes because the servers can't handle the traffic. Their fulfillment system breaks because they don't have enough warehouses. And their customer service team gets overwhelmed and can't respond to emails. What happens next? Customers leave, reputation suffers, momentum dies. The strategy wasn't wrong. The infrastructure wasn't ready. Now ask yourself this: are you building a business that can handle success? Or are you building a business that will collapse the moment it works? Scaling is not just about attracting more customers. It's about being able to serve them well, consistently, and profitably. And that requires resources, capital, technology, people, systems that are often overlooked when leaders obsess over strategy. Look at Amazon. Their strategy of becoming the everything store was bold, but it would have failed without massive investments in logistics, warehouses, and cloud computing. The infrastructure wasn't an afterthought. It was the business. They built systems that could handle scale long before the strategy reached its full potential. The same applies to Starbucks. Their strategy wasn't just to sell coffee. It was to deliver a consistent customer experience worldwide. That required supply chain mastery, training systems, and processes so precise that you can walk into a Starbucks anywhere in the world and feel the same level of service. Strategy alone couldn't deliver that. Infrastructure did. The challenge for many leaders is that infrastructure work is invisible. It's not glamorous to invest in better accounting systems, hire operations managers, or upgrade technology platforms. It doesn't generate immediate applause. But scaling businesses know that infrastructure is the silent engine behind growth. Without it, strategy is like a sports car with no engine, shiny on the outside, useless when you need to move. Here's another question to consider: if your sales doubled tomorrow, could your business handle it? Could your systems process the orders? Could your team manage the workload? Could your cash flow sustain the growth until the revenue caught up? If the answer is no, then your problem isn't strategy, it's infrastructure. And until you fix it, you'll be trapped in cycles of growth and collapse. Resources are another pillar. Scaling takes capital, money to invest in people, marketing, technology, and expansion. And many businesses fail not because the strategy was wrong, but because they ran out of fuel halfway through the journey. It's like trying to drive across the country on half a tank of gas. Leaders must be brutally honest about the resources required to scale. Do you have the capital to sustain growth? Do you have the right team to execute? Do you have the technology to keep pace? Strategy without resources is nothing more than wishful thinking. But infrastructure isn't just about systems and money. It's about people too. You need the right roles, the right structure, and the right accountability. A small startup can function with everyone wearing multiple hats. But as you scale, that chaos becomes unsustainable. You need clarity of roles, documented processes, and leaders who can manage complexity. Ask yourself, have you built a team that can scale? Or are you still relying on heroic efforts from a handful of individuals? Because heroes can get you started, but systems scale you. Let's take a closer look at adaptability within infrastructure. Even the best systems will need to evolve. A CRM that works for 100 customers may break at $10, and a small warehouse may be efficient now but will fail when you expand nationwide. Leaders must constantly ask, are my systems built for where I am or for where I'm going? If they're only built for today, your growth will outpace your capacity. If they're built for tomorrow, You're setting yourself up to scale smoothly. The great paradox is that infrastructure often feels like an expense when it's actually an investment. Building scalable systems, hiring ahead of growth, and upgrading technology may reduce short-term profits, but it positions you for exponential growth later. Too many leaders focus on squeezing every dollar today, only to find their business crumbling when opportunity knocks tomorrow. Scaling requires the courage to invest in the unseen foundations. So, what does this mean for you? It means you must constantly audit your business not just for strategy, but for capacity. Don't just ask, do we know where we're going? Ask, can we handle it when we get there? Don't just ask, how do we attract more customers? Ask, how do we serve them without breaking our systems? These questions may not feel exciting, but they are the difference between businesses that scale sustainably and businesses that collapse under growth. At the heart of it all is this truthy strategy may point the way, but infrastructure clears the path. Without the right foundation, even the greatest ideas crumble. Scaling is not a test of brilliance. It's a test of readiness. And readiness comes from resources, systems, people, and infrastructure that can support the vision. So I'll leave you with a few powerful questions. If your business tripled in size tomorrow, what would break first? If you won a massive new client today, could you deliver flawlessly? If your growth suddenly accelerated, do you have the systems to keep pace? Your answers to these questions will tell you whether your strategy is truly scalable or just a dream waiting to collapse. Because in the end, it's not strategy that scales your business. It's the infrastructure that carries it. And if you want your vision to become more than a plan, you must build the foundation strong enough to hold it. Strategy may light the fire, but resources and infrastructure are what keep it burning. Without them, your business will never reach its full potential.